welcome to It's Time to Get Your You-Know-What Together. Here we will discuss everything from estate planning to how to avoid a probate administration and everything in between. As I told you, housekeeping, keep your mics on mute, and we're happy to take all your questions. There's no dumb questions. So, we're here to take all your questions. Let me introduce to you Samantha Fitzgerald. She is an attorney in Plantation and her firm is 100% focused on estate planning and probate and trust administration. She's been practicing for over 20 years and she's a CPA and has her LLM in tax. Welcome, Samantha.
Thanks, Bianca.
So good to have you. She's the best, I have to tell you. My name is Bianca Moreras, and I will be your host and moderator. I am a business development and career transition coach and consultant. I bring 37 years of experience to the table with a concentration in law firms and working with attorneys with the ability to help any company get to the next level. So welcome, everyone. And we're going to get started today. We're going to be talking about why you need an estate, like you're alive, like why do you need an estate? So we're going to be talking about that. I'm not that old. I know I look marvelous. I'm in my 60s, but I'm not that old. Don't I have time to get my estate planning ready?
Well, I wish I had the answer to that. And we have a crystal ball here. We have one in each of our conference rooms, but they don't work. They're fake. I got them on Amazon. We don't have a crystal ball. You don't have to be old to die or become incapacitated. We handle a lot of probate administrations for young people, unfortunately. So, there's a big misconception that old people do estate planning, but that's simply not the case at all. We prepare what we call the incapacity documents for our client, many of our clients' children who turn 18 years old. Once they're 18, they are adults. When you become an adult, your parents are no longer your legal guardians, and they no longer have any ability to make decisions for you or access your financial accounts unless it's something that you own with them jointly and they're a joint owner on it, just like any other joint ownership. So estate planning is absolutely not for old people. And the nature of today's Zoominar is planning for your lifetime, because a lot of people think of estate planning and death. I'm planning for my death. I'm planning for my death. But there's actually a lot that we do in estate planning that is relevant while you're alive. And so it was very interesting that I had this scheduled for today, because here's a real life example of something that happened this week. So I have a client and we did a certain type of deed for his parents because they owed him money and the house was supposed to transfer to him upon their death. So we did what we call a life estate deed to keep it out of probate and make sure it went directly to this particular child. And he contacted me and said, both my parents landed in the hospital this week, both at the same time. One day they were fine. One day, both of them were not fine. And he said, I'm very concerned about the house, and then it's going to go to the state. Well, that's another common kind of statement that I hear people say. There's really no such thing. You're not going to lose your assets to the state. Other bad things may happen, but that's not really it. So we discussed, well, did they sign the deed yet? Because I hadn't received it back. And of course they hadn't. And he said, well, what do we do? Can my dad sign it? Because he's kind of okay. He's still coherent, but mom wasn't coherent anymore. So I said, well, does dad have a power of attorney for mom? And I knew the answer, but I had to ask. No, because they've never done any estate planning whatsoever. So here you have mom and dad own a piece of real estate. Mom is completely incapacitated. Dad is, he's not really incapacitated, but he's in the hospital, certainly not, in a good situation. Dad does not have any legal authority to sign that document on behalf of his wife. She has to sign it. So they can't do anything with respect to this house right now. Now, if mom dies, which is sad to talk about, but I have to go there. If mom dies and dad is still okay at that point, then he can go ahead and sign the deed. So that's problem one. There's a lot of problems all within this one scenario. So problem two, the next day he contacts me and says his mom is like on life support and his siblings want to put her into hospice. But there was this other treatment that may potentially save her, and he wanted to explore that. So now they're fighting. Dad's in the hospital as well. So dad can't really he's not in a position to make decisions for his wife. And all of the children don't agree. Bam, here they are thrust into this situation out of nowhere, both parents in the hospital and major decisions having to be made, and they don't agree. Well, what do you do? Who's in charge? They don't have any documents. So now we're talking about a potential legal battle, which is not where they want to be, because mom's going to die before they resolve anything in the court system. And so not only do you have a difficult situation, but then you have to throw legal junk on top of it, and money, a lot of money. This client happens to be able to afford this process, but a lot of people can't. And you're already traumatized by whatever the underlying situation is. So, had mom and dad had some very simple estate planning documents in place, a healthcare surrogate designation, and a durable power of attorney, none of these things would have been problems. He would have called me, I would have told him what to do, and we would have taken care of it. Very simple. So most people are thinking of death when they're thinking of estate planning, and they're thinking that they need to be old, but absolutely not. It's planning for your lifetime in the event you might become incapacitated, plus planning, of course, what happens after death. But that lifetime planning is just as, or sometimes even more so important than the death part. So unfortunate set of circumstances that could have easily been prevented.
So I guess everyone on this call who doesn't have their life in order should get their life in order.
Once you're 18, you need some sort of documents.
Sounds reasonable. But, you brought up medical stuff. Aren't I allowed to make medical and financial decisions for my spouse right now?
Medical, yes. So there is a list of people that can make medical decisions for you. In that example I had, it may not be the person you want to make, or there may be people all at a certain level that have the same rights. So when you hit parents, both parents have equal rights to make decisions. Maybe they don't agree. Maybe they're not married. Maybe they're estranged from one another. Maybe it's a problem. Or you have children that are all on the same level, and then they don't agree. So yeah, somebody can make a medical decision for you. There's a list of hierarchy in the statutes. Again, it may not be the person you want it to be. So it's very important that you choose. You want to be able to choose who can make the decisions for you, and you want it to be clear. You don't want the hospital or the doctor to be questioning, who do I talk to here? Who's in charge of this life or death decision? So not only that, but then what they don't have is nobody has access to your medical records. So even though somebody can make a medical decision for you, they don't have access to your medical records or information unless you sign a HIPAA release, which is part of a healthcare surrogate. It could be a freestanding document, but it's always part of the healthcare surrogate designation itself. So even though you can make a decision for somebody, you can't call up and say, hey, how is he or she doing? Sorry, ma'am, I can't speak with you. It's private. And then the flip side of that, the financial part, no, you absolutely have no rights to make any financial decisions for a spouse just because you're married. Now, if you're on a joint financial account together, whoever you're on a joint account with, either joint owner can access that account 100% and can typically do everything that they need to do on that account. But going back to that real estate example, you're on title jointly with the spouse. That doesn't give you any legal rights to do anything for your spouse. You need the power of attorney. The durable power of attorney is an extremely important document.
But
so
I wanted to bring up to our audience in case they didn't know, as soon as you put that in place though, can't that person make decisions for you?
Yes. So a durable power of attorney under Florida law is effective immediately, not upon your incapacity. It's effective right away. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad. If the person, so that's called the agent, if the agent that you've given the power to doesn't physically have the document, they can't use it. So that's one way to safeguard it. We absolutely don't recommend you hand that out to anybody until the time is necessary, unless you want help now. So with those older clients who their children are already helping them with their finances, then yeah, you give them the power of attorney now, even though you're not incapacitated, your son or your daughter or whomever it is can step in and help you with your banking transactions and other things. So it's very helpful that it is effective right away and you don't have to wait for the incapacity, because it's a little different than the medical decisions part, but you do have to safeguard it and be careful with it.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's an important point. Okay, so I'm married, but for someone that's not married in the group here, who can make medical decisions for that person?
So it will go through a list of people. So first it's your spouse, and then it's going to be your children, parents, siblings, and it goes all the way down a long list of people, believe it or not, all the way to a close friend. So it again may not be the person that you want if they come before somebody else. And so where this is very, very relevant, aside from having problematic relationships, is, if you're in a relationship but you're not married, if you have no children but your parents are still alive, or you don't have any children, and who is that person that you want to make decisions for you. So it depends on your pool of people. Sometimes it's fine, the right person is stepping in, and other times it's extremely problematic. And you don't want to be in a situation that my client was in this week where he's arguing with his siblings over keeping mom alive or not. That's not good.
Yeah, no, that doesn't sound good. So how about on the flip side, if you have, let's say, 3 children and one of them you're estranged from for over 20 years, and you don't want them to make any of your medical decisions, is that preventable?
Yeah, by doing your estate planning. So that's why we do these documents and clearly state in writing who you want to make medical decisions for you, including alternate people. So in all these different roles that you're going to assign to somebody, you're going to have alternates named so that it never gets to that child that you're estranged from. There's lots of estrangement going on. We see it every day. Children, parents, there's a lot of people that have a legal relationship with you that you don't feel like you have one with. We had an estate last year, young man in his 50s, not thinking of estate planning. Why? Because he wasn't old, right? So had some assets. He wasn't married, had no children. He unexpectedly passed away. So he had a mom and what I thought was his dad. And very nice couple, been married for a long, long time. It turns out, well, that's stepdad who raised him because real dad took off. Well, guess what? Real dad's a beneficiary. So mom and real dad got a windfall that day. He walked into a nice sum of money, didn't raise these kids, didn't contribute, didn't do anything for these kids their entire life. Stepdad was basically their dad, but he didn't have anything in writing. So, there you have a young man who was, waiting till he got old to do his documents. Who knows? So that was a death issue. But oftentimes I'm, touting revocable trust and saying that, wills don't, always do what you expect them to do. In that case, a simple will would have been great for him. Even though his estate ended up going through probate, it would have gone to the right place at least. But that was a disastrous outcome. So The
Yeah,
documents and specifying who should be making decisions for you is extremely important.
so if I'm hearing you correctly, if someone was married, never divorced, but hadn't lived with their husband for 20 years and they passed away, that husband would get this estate?
So we actually see that somewhat often here. We have a term for it. But yeah, it's common that people don't get divorced for whatever reason. There's lots of different reasons, but they move on in life and they have a significant other, but they obviously can't remarry and they have a whole nother life with somebody else, but they're still legally married. Well, that spouse is getting it. Depending on whether you have children or not, the outcome might be different. If you have no children, that spouse is getting 100% of your estate, of your probate estate, and a 401k, because that has to go to your spouse. So again, some pretty disastrous results potentially. Now, some of that you can only partially override because spouses have rights, but a lot of it, instead of them getting 100%, maybe they only get a smaller percentage. So really, really important to have documents.
Wow, wow. And I'm in good health. Come on, tell me what really that crystal ball, what's the rush to do these documents?
That's one of my favorites. We actually had somebody who said, well, I'm in good health today, so we don't need to do this right now. We're going to put it off. And I thought, oh, okay. So the time to do these documents is when you're sick. Okay. Or when you're on the side of 95 after you just had a car accident. Okay. No, the time to do documents is when you're perfectly healthy. That's the time that you need to do these things, not, oh, I was just diagnosed with cancer. Let me, I need to get my affairs in order. Well, better late than never. However, that's not what you want to be thinking about, when you have other problems going on. Once you turn 18, as I said, you should have a power of attorney and a healthcare surrogate designation. But as you get older and you start to acquire some assets, if you own a home or you have a job, so you have a 401k, you have a life insurance policy perhaps, or if you have children at any point, whether you have a home or not, if you have children, you have an obligation to put some planning in place. If you're incapacitated and nobody can make medical or financial decisions for you, and you have children and somebody needs to take care of them, it's just adding disaster on top of disaster. And then God forbid you die, who's taking the kids? Don't you want to be the one to designate who their legal guardian should be? So the time to do documents is when you are perfectly healthy and younger. Don't wait till you're older to do these documents, because the older you get, the more you just put it off, you put it off, you put it off. And then you get to a place where we see this a lot. You don't really fully grasp what's going on. And the lawyer is in a tough situation there where, if we deem you're incapacitated, we can't do documents for you. Or you might need transportation to the lawyer's office. And that becomes problematic when maybe, there's a child that's getting more than another child. Then we have issues of, is mom or dad, being coerced? Even if they're not, is it going to give the appearance of some sort of coercion? Now we have more steps to take and, to ensure that your wishes are followed and that somebody's not going to contest your documents. So don't wait until you're in a bad position to do documents. The time to do them is when you're young and healthy. And they can always be changed. I think a lot of people, for some reason, they think it's so final. Well, it is final if you die and you can't change your document, but all these documents can be changed whenever you want, however many times that you want, so getting something in writing is better than having nothing. I had a client the other day and they said, I know that I'm going to change these documents. I'm not 100% sure, what I want, but I know getting something in place is better than not having anything. And I said, that's fantastic. I wish more people would think like that.
Awesome. I'm gonna go off a little topic here for a second. Do you think if you have a viable growing business that is making good money and you have children and you have a home and maybe you're, you know, I don't know, have a boyfriend versus a husband, whatever. How do you feel about securing the business as well? Is that something that can be done?
Oh, 100%. That is even more so important because depending on how you have the business structured and who has any authority to do anything, what if something happens to you? Forget the death, because, maybe you're not going to die, but maybe you're in a car accident on the way to work, or maybe all of a sudden you're diagnosed with aggressive cancer, or you have a heart attack. My assistant was on a plane last week and somebody had a heart event on the plane. They had doctors and medics and, sometimes I hear a lot of stories of people on vacation, unfortunately, have some sort of medical events. We had another client that almost didn't make it home from Italy about a month ago. I don't know if it's just the travel, the pressure in the plane, or who knows what triggers something. But a lot of events happen when people are traveling. I'm sorry, what was your question? I totally
Yeah,
forgot.
so
Oh, the business.
can
Oh
you
my
do
gosh,
this for
the
the
business,
Yes.
so important. What happens if nobody has any authority to sign checks in your business or to make decisions, if they can not speak to vendors, your employees aren't getting paid, your business is at a standstill, it can't continue, nobody is in charge of making decisions. Does anybody else have any questions? Because I was just gonna kind of throw out there, a lot of crazy things have happened in the world, like we say, well, I'm not old, I'm in good health, but look at what's transpired in our world in a short period of time. A condo collapsed. Well, none of those people thought that they would be crushed in their condo that they lived in that day. Mass shootings everywhere. A bridge collapses, in Miami and kills people on the bridge and under the bridge. Recently, a young man crashed and drove his car into a lake right here in Sunrise. He died, and then somebody jumped in to save him, and he died. Two young men, 18, 19 years old. They didn't expect to die that day. Every day, people are diagnosed with cancer. They have heart attacks and just die at the age of 40 and 50. Strokes, aneurysms, car accidents galore in South Florida. Nobody expects or knows when they're going to die or become seriously ill or seriously injured. So you have to do these things. You have to think about these things. Unfortunately, sometimes people just don't want to think about it, but you're not doing this for yourself necessarily. You're doing this for your loved ones and the people that are going to have to jump in quickly and help you if you're incapacitated, you're sick, or you're injured. You're making things really, really difficult for them if you don't have legal documents in place. And then, if it goes to the next level and you actually do pass away, why not make it easy for them? Stay out of our court system. They're underfunded, they're overworked. It makes things take a lot longer than it needs to take. And things end up going to the wrong people and causing a lot of trouble. So, it's not a fun thing. Everybody, I'm sure, would rather spend money on a vacation than do your planning, but this is important stuff. And it's not just all about death. It's for your lifetime too.
Well, what we'd like to say is that Samantha is available to speak to any of you. She, enjoys that after our program, the conversation. There's a short consult that she will have with you. And I will let you know that she is so thorough, checklists, all of that. I have all my stuff in order. I feel so relieved. It's like taking 10 pounds off without dieting. Yay. And, it's all good. So we're here the third Friday of every month with free information with different topics. If you're on LinkedIn, watch for our blast. If you have signed up, you will continue to get our notifications. Please join us anytime. Happy Friday. Thank you, Samantha. Any last words?
Nope, just thank you everybody for coming. Thanks, Bianca. Appreciate it. And I hope everybody learned something and has a fantastic weekend.